Hello, hello. Hey, Sarah. Hey, Tashar. Welcome to Talk Python to me.
Hi,
Hello.
Gary.
So good to have you both on the show. When I saw the Django Knots project, I think it was Brian Ocken that had found it and started talking about it on Python Bytes initially. I'm like, oh, that is a brilliant idea. I definitely need to talk to the people behind it. So glad to have you both here. You both are playing multiple roles in this whole process, which is fantastic. So excited to dive into the Django Knots.
Amazing. I actually remember when that came up and we were all got excited and we were like, how on earth did they find us?
Oh,
So
that's
really cool.
that entire show is just about finding stuff that's interesting like that maybe doesn't get a light shown on it and shining that light. So awesome. Happy we're able to do it. And we'll do it a little bit more today. We'll make it the whole topic. How's that?
Awesome.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
indeed. Now, before we dive into all that, let's just start with your story. How do you get into programming? What do you do these days? Sarah, let's start with you.
Okay, yeah. So I'm a Django developer. That's probably not surprising. I've been doing that pretty much my entire developer career. It's about 5 years. And about a year, 2 years ago, I started getting involved in open source contributions to Django Core. And now I'm part of the review and triage team, which is a fancy name for saying like active core Django contributor group or something like that. And yeah, why I'm here today is now we've got the mentorship program that I co-organize.
Yeah, it's amazing. What kind of apps do you work on? Have you worked on in Django? Like, are you building APIs or what are you building?
Yeah, good question. So originally, it was pretty much the full stack Django experience with Django templates, and then I changed companies, and then it was with a React front end and a Django REST framework API backend, which is perhaps quite a typical setup, really.
Yeah.
And I've changed again, and now I'm a developer advocate for JetBrains. So I no longer have to maintain a web application. So yeah, that's me.
The dev relationship can't go down at night, right? You're not going to get woken up
Exactly.
on a weekend because somebody upgraded the database and now your app doesn't work anymore. Now, I'm
True,
a
true.
huge fan of JetBrains and what they're doing. And that must be a fun place to work, I imagine. Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed. Tushar, how about you?
Hi everyone. So I'm Tushar Gupta. I'm from India, and I have recently graduated. I graduated in 2023, so that was my first undergrad course. And I currently work as a software engineer at Samagra Governance, and where we deal with problems related to Indian governments. So we work alongside with the Indian government and create solutions that helps them govern better. That's my day job, and uh, I've been involved with open source from my sophomore year. That was the place. Like I was quite shocked seeing, wow, there are people who are there to help you for free, and you get so high quality code reviews just for free. So like,
Yeah.
it was a full package for me, and I got into some fellowships. And one of the fellowships, I'm not sure if you heard of it, was Major League Hacking. They ran a fellowship, and in there I got introduced to Django and to Carlton as well. And I think from there only Django Knots got me as one of the uh, contributors trying to get into the code, and they reached out for the pilot program. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's me, and now I'm here.
Oh, wonderful. So you said you just recently started working as a software developer professionally. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. How are you liking it?
I think it's pretty good with. I've been always amazed with how much I can do with my laptop, and now that you have a job which also uh, kind of create lets you create some real impact. I can literally see students in public schools using our apps, using our APIs to get better at their normal courses. So yeah, it's been a complete amazing experience.
Yeah, it's definitely fun. I think the hardest part about software development is getting your first job. And once you have a little bit of credibility and experience, then it's kind of chasing what you're interested in. But yeah, congratulations. That's excellent.
Thanks.
All right, well, let's dive in. Let's blast off, huh? Let's blast off with the Django knots, right? And you really have leaned into this space and astronaut angle here. The website is djangonauts.space. We have navigators and captains and Django knots and so on. So yeah, very fun, very playful, I think. And that's, on one hand, it's like what difference does it make? On the other, I think it makes a difference, right? Especially for people who are getting more into programming. Like, it should sound fun because it is fun, but I think it draws people in. It certainly did me when I heard about it, like I said.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Sarah, I'll let you introduce this whole program. It's pretty neat. Tell us about it.
Sure. So I guess there's been a need for more mentorship within the Django kind of open source community for some time. And we have already participated in some other programs like the Major League Hacking and Google Summer of Code. But sometimes we don't always retain people. We have variable success. And there are still a bunch of people who appear in our help channels, and they're always like, oh, I'm interested in mentorship. Please help me. How do I get started, etc. And it felt like there could be more that we could be doing there. And so this topic of we need a mentorship program came up a number of times. And eventually we launched Djangonaut Space as our answer to that kind of need. We took heavy inspiration from the Kubernetes ladder program. So the Kubernetes community, or it also has their own contributor mentorship program. And that had the concept of cohorts, for example, which we've very much borrowed, and things like this. So what we wanted to do was to design something that could be quite lightweight and sustainable, as we want to, respect everybody's time that's involved and kind of appreciate that the open source experience is a little bit in and out, and that's kind of normal also. So anyway, what we are kind of iterating on is we now have a 8-week program, which actually the next program starts on Monday. So we're just about getting everybody excited and together for that right now. And in the program, we have Djangonauts. This is our term for mentees, like the participants of the program. And they will be assigned a navigator in a team. So there's about a team of 3 mentees or Djangonauts with 1 navigator. The navigator is a person who has open source contributor experience and some kind of background that they can use to answer questions and all this kind of stuff.
Do they have to be a Django core developer, or do you have to be even a contributor to Django, or do they, if I would say question. I worked on Flask and I was really awesome at it, but I also want to help these folks over here. I'm really good at open source, but not so much Django contributor yet.
So we have expanded the program. So in the pilot, it was originally just Django Core that we were focusing on. And now we have navigators that have a focus on other packages. So for example, Tim Schilling is one of the maintainers of Django Debug Toolbar. And Mark Walker is, I think he's the tech lead of Django CMS. And so we are kind of incorporating that we want to build a contributor base to the Django ecosystem as a whole, because all of the packages really do help and support Django. It's part of the real core value of Django as a framework is the other open source packages that are around it. And who knows whether we will expand even further later on. But I think really the thing that's key is having a little bit of open source experience. And to be honest, a lot of it is transferable. So a little bit around etiquette for reviews, like don't at people all the time and all this kind of stuff. And
channel, I need some help.
Things like that. We then have one other role, which is the captain, and they add another layer of support to the program. So these are it's kind of like a supportive pastoral role, and they have more one-to-one sessions with the Djangonauts to get to know them, check that they're okay, and if there was anything that kind of they wanted to talk about but they didn't feel comfortable mention it in their like in a larger group. So we do have a Discord chat, and we also have these weekly check-ins that they have with the navigators in the team. But the captain's one-to-one, if you've got something that you perhaps you've been really poorly and you want to talk about that, and anything that comes up in life that perhaps you didn't feel comfortable announcing to the world, can come up in with your captain. So they're really there to also normalize any of the anxieties or feelings that you have around working in public, because if this is the first time you're doing that, it's also a little bit vulnerable. So yeah, also shout out to the captains.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's a pretty powerful way to organize this, right? You've got a lot of support. The thing that strikes me about this is it feels a little bit like a boot camp, right? Like a coding boot camp. I'm going to just take the next 3 months off and dive into this, but way more lightweight than that. And also, I think for other people who might be thinking that, it's worth pointing out that the goal is not to teach people how to Django, right?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Tushar, you want to add to that as well? You're shaking your head there.
Yeah, so Djangonaut is not a boot camp. I think we have been getting a lot of questions around that as well, that whether it's a boot camp, whether someone will be taught how to Django, but it's not like that. It's you can think of it as a program which gives you the right support, right people, and right resources in case if you want to contribute to the core Django or the Django ecosystem. So it kind of brings in all the right people together for a short time so that you can get the needed lift off that you want and get started with the Django.
Yeah, so I guess the mental model people should have is primarily the goal here is to increase the contributors to maybe Django, maybe, as you mentioned, Sarah, a little bit broader, like maybe you could contribute to Tim's project, the Django debug toolbar. Just don't leave it on in production. And and those types of things, right? Like in the broader ecosystem, bringing people in to contribute to Django more broadly. So it's specifically about creating people who make those contributions,
exactly,
rather than saying, I heard that programming is cool, so I'm going to quit my marketing job and do that.
Exactly. And I think a thing that, because what is success? It's such an interesting question, because we get random commits from people all the time, and really it's not necessarily that there aren't going to be contributors to Django. Django is quite a big package. People will always come and suggest things and give some code. It's more also around that Django has a community behind it, and the people who stick around longer term they feel like they're part of that community and that they're part of something a little bit bigger than just a commit in this
Yeah.
cold, heartless
Yeah.
code base that's somewhere. And so if we can get people to feel like actually there are a bunch of real, very helpful people who are working on Django and other packages around it, and that you could interact with these people, and a lot of them are now my friends. I think it kind of is trying to show that there's a lot more to it, and there's this value you can keep getting, and hopefully then people will stick around. And I think it's more the if you can stick around and do sustainable contributions over a longer period of time, that builds up to something really quite huge. And I think for me that I find that really exciting.
Yeah. To me, Django, more than almost any other sub community of a programming world, right? Not Python itself, but Versus, Flask, Lightstar, whatever, other web frameworks, ORMs, whatever. It seems really to build a community around it, and not just technical excellence, right? Like Django has a lot of technical attributes that people are attracted to. A lot of the Django people I talk to are attracted because of the community and the support, and they just want to be part of that thing. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think you can see that in the Django Knot program itself. When I first got in, I thought like meeting all the core contributors face to face, having chats with them, and seeing problems that they face managing open source, and then their actual job, and then the Django contributions, and now there's a program. So I can see how much they're putting in towards maintaining and building this community, and how much they care about it. So it gives you a good inclusive feeling as well, and I found it really good.
Yeah. The only other, I'm sorry if I'm leaving some community out that I just don't know, but the only other part of Python that I feel really has it as nailed as that is the SciPy space. It seems like the Jupyter and the scientific computing side, there's kind of a big community there. You've got NumFocus that actually funds a lot of that, specifically in that area, but it's pretty unique. Speaking about funding, I don't see a pricing on your page here. Like, what's the price?
Oh, I wasn't prepared enough for this question. Okay. Right. So, if we compared ourselves to Outreachy or Google Summer of Code, they do actually have a sponsorship where they do pay the. It's almost like a scholarship that you're going
right,
to
like an internship almost type thing. Yeah,
exactly.
A little, yeah. Okay.
And we don't have that money. We have been very generously given a grant from the Django Software Foundation to help us grow this program. And we will be using that in different places in order to do that. But at some point, we would like to gain sponsorship from companies. So if you're listening and that's something that you think would be a good idea, then please get in touch with the organizers. That would be awesome.
Yeah, Sarah, you should go on a podcast and let the companies know.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
No, well, I think that's awesome, and it would be really, I do want to encourage companies out there listening who have connections back to Django, or just want to get in front of Django developers for whatever reason, to do that. That would be awesome. But it doesn't cost money to participate as a
100% no.
Django Knot, right?
No. I mean, yeah. Back to what Tushar said at the very start, that like he couldn't believe that he got these amazing quality like PR reviews from all these experienced engineers for free. I think open source is this incredible resource where you can get very usable real life programming experience, and yeah, generally for free. So
Yeah.
no, we don't charge people to be
And you,
part of this.
that's awesome. And you can participate in very professional type of projects without having to go through and getting a job at a FANG company or whatever, right? You're just like, I'm going to be part of this GitHub project, and it looks like they have continuous integration and code reviews and these experts and so on. It's very cool. It's pretty magical, open source. Tushar, so originally you were a Djangonaut, and now you're coming back to pay it forward a little bit afterwards. So let's start by talking about your experience going through the program. Like, what were you thinking when you signed up for it? What was it? And what was the day-to-day like? And then what did you get out of it?
I think I got pretty excited when I saw this email. So I got an email, I think a few months back, saying that there's a program that program named Djangonaut that is going to be started. It's a very small program. We are going to be in teams of 3 to 4, and whether are you interested or not. So it was a complete yes for me that I'm totally interested. And I reverted back to the email, and after a few days, I got a selection email that, yeah, you are finally in. I also shared it with some of my juniors who are also trying to contribute to Django REST frameworks, Django stubs, and other projects to here's the GitHub link of the program that is going in a pilot mode. Just go and try out. So I think one of the other folks named Anwan, she also got in. He's also now joining us as a captain. And during my phase as a Djangonaut, I think the best part of this program that I've talked about a lot of times before as well, the core difference that I saw in contributing to different projects and joining in as Djangonaut was you were actually meeting real people. They were not just some GitHub usernames that you just talk over technically, but you can really talk with them, where they live, how they look, and just get on with what got them started with the project and how they do stuff. So that gave me a kind of inclusivity, a sense of belonging in the community, that I know people. I know Sarah Boyce, I know Rachel, I know a lot of people now. I know Tim, and it got me it gave me some kind of motivation to just just be involved, irrespective of not lose my motivation and just be with the program. So during the Djangonaut phase, I contributed, I think, a few PRs. There's one that's on the accessibility part of Django. I think it's in a work of progress, so it's just getting in slowly and slowly. There's some docs changes that I've done, and then there's another one that is just in preview. Another thing that I was getting out of Djangonaut was, I know there is a focused group that is communicating to me about my PRs and how I can get better reviews. If the reviews are getting delayed, I was getting active response on the team is currently busy, or maybe there's a holiday season going on, maybe there's a new Django major release that's going on, so team is not getting enough time to currently review it. So I didn't feel isolated or ghosted out there, but I knew there are people who are seeing this, and the whole experience was very good, meeting a lot of new people, and it was just fun. So that's how Djangonaut worked for me.
Yeah, excellent. And you're going on to become a captain for the next cohort, right? So you're doing the one-on-one mentorship side of things.
Yeah, I think I wanted to. So I asked when the Djangonaut program was about to be ended. I asked Sarah. There's another Sarah. So I asked her is there any way I can still be around, and can this Discord group be continued, or are we going to just shut it now as the program has ended? So she told me that no, we are going to have another cohort, and you can come in as a Djangonaut captain if you want, and just meet other people. And I was like, why not?
Yeah.
Meeting a lot of new people, and there are a lot of people from the country that I'm from, so that got me even more excited that there were folks out there that I didn't knew of, and now I know them. So yeah.
That's excellent. Probably you're more likely to go to conferences where there's Django people meeting and just generally
Yeah.
be more part of the community, right? Not just this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think just the part Django not nailed completely is like doing one-on-ones, video calls. It just gives you some sense of belonging. Yeah, it's great to see people uh, one-to-one and talk with them. So it's
Yeah,
fun.
I mean, like that you always notice it that after a DjangoCon, so there's DjangoCon US and DjangoCon Europe happens pretty much every year. We just had a DjangoCon Africa for the first time. But we don't have a DjangoCon Asia or a DjangoCon South America. And there are regions that don't have this opportunity of a conference each year that the community really gets together and that you meet people. And
Yeah.
whenever you see the conference and you see people afterwards, they're buzzing and everyone's so excited to have gotten together and to really reignite that kind of community feeling. But it's not accessible to everybody. And it's really nice for us to try and recreate a little bit. It's not the same as a DjangoCon, of course, but a little bit of that Django magic. If we can bring a little bit of that experience to a wider group of people, I think it's really special, because I think that's really what Django is about for me.
Yeah. For every person that is pretty close or pretty accessible to a local meetup or a regional conference, there are many, many people who work by themselves, live far from those places, and it's these types of things serve a really important connection to the community that way. Yeah. All right, Sarah, what about time commitments? What's the day-to-day look like? 12 hours a day? What do you all do?
Yeah, it's constant. Right, so that's one of the things we really try to design also. We have, as a Djangonaut, it is self-managed and self-guided. So with the amount of time commitment, we're saying it's maybe 4 hours a week, but it can really vary. So if you did 2 hours, or maybe 1 week you decided that you're going to spend your whole Saturday or whatever, it can really be driven by that participant. We're not going to be there with a whip saying, please do more or do less.
Yeah.
Actually, the do less would be a concern. I mean, we do want to make sure that this is sustainable. And if we saw people, I don't know, constantly working on something without ever taking a break, then that would be something that we would want the captains and the navigator to go in and check that they're okay and that they know it's not the end of the world and that they can take a break.
That happens to me when I get really just super into something, usually some new technology. I'll just working on it. Take a break. Wow, I'm hungry. Oh, it's because I haven't eaten for 8 hours. What's going on? But to me, like that's it's kind of cool to get lost that way, but you shouldn't set it as an expectation, right? You're like
exactly. Yes, exactly. And people work really differently, and if this is sustainable and it works for you, and that's completely fine. But if it was that somebody said, oh, I will probably finish this ticket and they said this in their weekly meeting, and they thought, oh God, I have to finish it by the next weekly because I said I would, or something like that. That's not what we expect, and that's completely fine. So yeah, maybe it's roughly 4 hours a week for Djangonauts. Tushar would be a better person to ask that.
Yeah, you've recently been there. How was it?
I think when I started Django, when I started with the program, I was quite pumped. I went through all the trash tickets on the track and made a Notion doc of tickets that I wanted to take a look at and try. But I soon got burned out. Then I think I had a session with Lily. I told her that I think I'm getting a bit burned out. So she told me that you can relax a bit. And she told her way of contributing to Django as well. So she told me that she has some burst of sprints where she contributes. So it's like a 2 PRs in a month, and then another month there's no PR. So kind of works like that. But yeah, I think there's no pressure as such for Django nodes to like work that they have to make a PR, that they have to make contributions regularly so they be part of the program. Everyone can work at their own pace, and you can also keep communicating with your navigators and your captains to let them know what's working for you, what's not working for you. And I think it's a pretty chill environment out there, so you can just figure out what works for you. So for me, I think burst of sprints worked for me. So I used to so if I take a ticket, I make sure that I get something going on, and then I take some break, and then I come back to Django, and I keep context switching between different open source projects. So that was how I got myself to the program. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, if you context switch too frequently, you kind of just never really get going. You got to be save a little focus and a little deep work on one thing.
Yep.
Sarah, Tushar mentioned choosing tickets to contribute to. One of the things that's challenging about projects like Django or any other project that's been around that long with that many people using it is it's really complicated, and any part that you change can have really wide-ranging consequences, right? You don't want to take down Instagram just for a contribution, right? What I'm getting at is it can be hard as a beginner to find the right issues to work on. How do you navigate that?
So it is definitely a challenge, and it's also a challenge to answer the question because it's really dependent on the individual and what are your goals. So if you want to achieve the I got a PR merged into Django badge, for example, that's one potential goal. Or perhaps you're going, no, I want to be able to have my name again, like when Django 5.1 goes out and at the top there's like the major features, and like I want to have been a part of that or something like that, right. Then it's kind of like a different dynamic to it. And so if you were one of the individuals where you don't really mind, you just want to contribute where you can and maybe start small, for example, just to get something in, then there are different strategies to go about that. But the best strategy, in my opinion, is it's really common in, I would say, open source in general, that people come along and they submit a PR that they've done a good piece of work and it gets a PR review, and maybe there were a couple of things that needed changing, and then this person, for whatever reason, they vanish.
Yeah.
And probably because of life or whatever it is, or they just had enough energy to do that, and that's completely fine. And they didn't care about it enough to do extra bits or whatever.
Right. It could be they were trying to make Django do something, and they decided, you know what, I'm going to choose some other framework or
100%.
even some other language, and they just left, and they're not going to come back and polish, like, because you ask for reviews for better documentation.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for example, and you've hit the nail on the head with that, because for Django to accept anything, it needs tests, it needs docs. And so the code itself could be completely valid already. It could be like the perfect solution for the issue you're trying to solve. But if it was missing the tests and the docs, it wouldn't be accepted. Right. And so usually what happens is after a certain period of time, the fellows might do a ping to say, do you still want to work on this or something? And then after another period of time, they close it because it's gone quiet, basically. And so there are a bunch of these kind of unfinished starting points that you can swoop in, take that, and you've already got like some code, and it gives you good context with like because sometimes people will share a ticket and they go, I don't even know what file I should be in to start to do this work. Whereas if you took a PR that's got some code, you know what file, what function, you know what's going on there, and you've got a lot more immediate stuff.
Yeah. So like this basically works. It needs some polish, maybe a little optimization, and the supporting stuff. Like that's a way smaller project than imagine something you could add out of thin air, right?
Exactly, 100%. And then you can take those and you can be that person that pushes it over the line. And you obviously you credit the original author. You can put them in the as a co-author of the commit and thank them. But it's a really good place to build from there, because then you can slowly get more context about what does the process of doing a PR to Django even look like, because you're going to go through the PR review and you will learn as you do it. You'll learn how the documentation works, you will learn how the tests work, and all that kind of stuff. There's quite the contributing docs are quite extensive and scary. And it takes a while to absorb all that information, and for me personally, I have to do it to like really learn it. So I would say that's how I would suggest people get started if that was your goal.
Yeah.
But, and this is how I got started, but I would say it makes you like you're so scattered. So if I was trying to gain a really good, solid understanding of Django, I have a really weird picture that's being built that I'm only getting like 1 pixel at a time in very random spots. And so I
maybe
can't
really deep down in the code base, you know, kind of disconnected. Yeah.
I suddenly understand that one thing over there that's really random, but then this other completely unrelated thing over here. And so I'm not gaining like a depth of a technical understanding of one section as a whole. So if you were someone who wanted to have that that star feature that you wanted to have your name against, then really you should go and pick a section of Django. So if you went into the ticket tracker called track, you can filter by component, so by an area of Django.
And ORM or admin or something like that, right?
Exactly like this, exactly like that. And then look at just the tickets for them. And they will be your practical way to get that kind of information. But there's also sometimes there used to be a conference called Django Under the Hood, and you might find that there was a talk about forms or something like this that's maybe relevant, and you should build up your knowledge in like a much longer term perspective that you're focusing on this area. And there might even be like other packages that are related. So perhaps for example, David Smith is also a major contributor to Django, and he is coming from like a forms perspective, and he is also a maintainer of Django Crispy Forms, which gives him a lot of extra context with how people use forms in Django, and so he can look at tickets and use that extra way in that knowledge and his opinions whenever people are discussing things. So that's a bit more of like a in-depth deep dive approach, but it might not be the quickest way for you to get your first commit.
Yeah, you want to get that first early win or whatever. I really like the idea of reviving a stale PR. That's pretty clever. All right, Tim chilling out in the audience has a quick question for you, Tushar. Did you ever run into a wall in the Django code base? How did you handle that? It's very large, very old, so I imagine parts are hard. I know I get stumped when I try old tickets.
Yeah, I think one of the tickets, one of the issues that are currently out there was an accessibility ticket. So basically, we want to increase the accessibility of the Django admin. And this is something that I also found it quite interesting because it was a very interesting problem to build a CI/CD pipeline that will take care of uh, accessibility, whether the
So when
Django
you say
admin is accessible or
accessibility,
not.
are you talking multilingual? Are you talking screen reader?
Yeah.
What are you talking?
So Django serves a very large, diverse audience, and there could be people who are disabled. There could be people who are colorblind. So you have to take care of putting out a software that also caters to the needs of those people as well. So
Sure.
accessibility is so basically there's a lot of thing in that. There's a specification that's out there to define what is a good accessible software, and you can have a CI/CD that checks your project with that software, with that specifications. So I think that was a very open-ended ticket, and I faced a very big wall on how to approach that. What all is needed there, and the thing that I did was I reached out to my navigator and captains when I was in the program, and they actually got me connected to the right people and the right person to ping. So the track, they assigned the right people in the track that should have been in the ticket, and I think someone from the Django accessibility team came in. They gave me like weekly updates on what's the current status of this ticket, what are we planning. They told me that this is going to be a low chain ticket, it will spread out over a month because we are planning on how to do this correctly. And I think that's how I was able to get past that. The ticket is still open. There's another package that has been abandoned, but we are trying to bring it in the Django ecosystem, I think. So I think Mark is working on that. So that's how I basically get past the paywall, like the wall of getting the contribution. And I think most of the time navigators were very helpful in because they have a lot of contribution, and they also help me in pointing to the right uh, location. Where should I look to? So I think one of the times I reached out to Sarah to just know why this specific ticket was closed, and I was not able to find what went wrong, so that this PR was reverted, and she pointed out me to the right like the backtracking PR that you should take a look at. So this is how I generally just reach out, because that's what the program is for.
Yeah, it's that highlights a super big advantage or benefit of it, right? A normal contributor can't just make all these connections or even necessarily know who was involved in the original effort. Why was it shut down? Is it something the project doesn't want, or did people abandon it? Or right, none of that is accessible from the less accessible from the outside.
Yeah.
Yes, I completely agree.
Yeah. So people have been listening. Maybe they're pretty excited to be part of it. Do you have another cohort coming along? When's the next one?
Okay, so we are just starting the first of the year. That starts on the 15th of January. So if this is the first time you've heard about it, unfortunately, you're
Too
not
late.
it's too late for that one, unfortunately. That one's pretty much left the station. But
Well, I have a benefit for you that with a little bit of podcasting time travel. So this probably won't come out for 6 weeks.
Oh.
So on the main audio, although it's already on YouTube for folks listening there. So it'll be a little closer to the start of the one after that, if there's going to be a third.
I see. Okay, interesting. Thank you for that tip. Then the best place to check at any point, if you wanted to check if there is, if we're accepting applications for a session, is you could go to the Django Space website and then click on sessions. And when you click on sessions, you will see exactly. Right now, you can see that the session that we have is, if you scroll a bit further down on the screen, we're sharing this session. And you can see the latest information of the applications, when it starts, and all the details about that particular session. And so whenever we agree to do a new session, there will be that will appear on our website, and there will be this apply button essentially when applications are open. So in 6 weeks' time, that might be the case, that we are accepting new applications. There is also a interest form that we have. So again, on if you click back on sessions at the top, there is a joiners secret button.
Ooh.
Yeah, exactly. A top tip. Here you can send us your email, and what this just means is we will send you an email as soon as applications open for the next session, and then you will be the first to know. The other thing is we're on social media. We're on X and Mastodon and LinkedIn. So follow us on all of those places, and we will also post there for everything when that's
Yeah,
started.
definitely. And I'll put those in the podcast show notes so people can click on them and find all these things. It also seems you all are on YouTube. What happens over on YouTube?
We are on YouTube, and amazingly, we gained some followers before we've even really done anything. But this is our plan. So also in a session, we have a couple of guest speakers who come, and the Djangonauts can. They will usually talk about some topic, and they've got some particular experiences that they can share, and that you have a little bit of a Q&A with them. So in the pilot session, both Mariusz and Natalia, who are the two Django fellows, they had a session with our Djangonauts, and we record these sessions. And what we want to do is we want to publish these on our YouTube to make that available to everybody, because there's quite interesting information that gets shared in these talks, and the whole aim of open source is to share information, really. So that is the main plan for the YouTube channel, but we're not there yet. But maybe by the time the podcast is published, there will be.
You got a few weeks. You got a few weeks to work on it. That's cool. So people can they can smash the subscribe and crush the bell over there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'll be cool. So how many people are in the next cohort, the 2024 first cohort?
Yes, there is 18 Djangonauts. So we've really scaled it up since the pilot. Yeah, so that's 6 teams, whereas last time we had 2 teams, so quite a few more.
Yeah, that's cool. What's the cross-team story, right? Like I can imagine, say, like some kind of startup accelerator where there's groups, but sometimes they get together and present to each other what they're building, what they're doing. Like, is there something like that where the teams cross-pollinate or whatever? Yeah.
We have, you're in the same Discord, and we have channels that are available to everybody. And we are trying to achieve both a community feel and that you can work with other people. So we do have a life channel where people share things about, I don't know, that they went on a run, and it's a little bit more around the humanizing each individual and all this kind of stuff. But there are channels which are about work, I say, but contributing specifically. So on tickets, and people can share the work that they're doing and say, hey, I want some input on this, or does anybody want to work together with me on that? And there's nothing stopping a Djangonaut from working with another Djangonaut who's in a different team. The team is just a structure to give you a group that is manageable for one human to look after, and for you to have a meaningful discussion in a smaller group.
Sure. If it gets too big, it just becomes a bunch of anonymous people that happen to be in the same program. Yeah. William out there has an interesting question as you talk about adding more than before. What are your plans on scaling this, and what do you feel are limiting factors?
That's a really awesome question, William. So limiting factors are usually getting mentors who agree to do it at the same time. And it's interesting as to whether we continue to organize it that it's a session that everyone is there at the same time, or whether we allow it to no longer be a single cohort, and that somebody could be like, right, there's 2 people who are available from this date to this date, and therefore they can look after a few Djangonauts, for example. That could be an option for us to prevent this larger cohort, because it means that we're trying to get a group of, I don't know, 8 volunteers who can all do this time period at the same time. And that's a challenge. And we did struggle to. We got a reasonable amount of people raise their hands to be mentors, but we could always do with more of them. So, if anyone wants to do that, that's we would love to hear from you. So that's another thing that kind of limits that scale. And the other thing is we are learning the challenges as we go. So fortunately, we haven't had any issues yet. We have, for example, a code of conduct, and there is a way that people could report something that we should be aware of, and we haven't had that report yet. Touch wood, it will never happen. But there's some things that it will take a few iterations for us to really stress test our processes and check that this is going to be capable of scale. But yeah, who knows?
Yeah,
we're not there yet.
Well, one positive feedback loop is people like Tushar who went through it, but now are supporting its growth, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And a question for you from Sarah Tushar's. I saw multiple, or at least one person out in the audience saying, hey, I'm going to be in the next cohort. So do you have any advice as a former Djangonaut for new ones who are about to get started?
Yeah, I think one of the important advices would be to have a lot of fun. You can contribute to Django, but also you'll make a lot of good connections. So also be around in the Django Discord, as Djangonauts Discord, interact with people, talk with each other, attend the sessions, just get to know people, just get to know them a lot, because that 3 weeks, the amount of time that you'll part of the Djangonaut program will be they'll focus on getting you left off, but you should plan on making this program whole sustainable. So just try to be around, keep talking with different people, and have fun.
Good advice. All right, let's round this out with what are the benefits for the people who are participating, and I suppose also navigators and captains. One thing I see here that would be really a bonus is just the edge it gives you in working in web development and Python as a job opportunity going forward, right? If you say, yes, I know how to do a database query with the Django RM, please hire me. That's one thing. It's another to say, I added that feature that you're excited about. Can we talk about my position, right? Okay, everyone else is off the table, as long as you're a decent fit, right? Like that all of a sudden just puts you in a different stratosphere, I guess. Sticking with the theme. So maybe you all could speak a little bit to advantages beyond just I want to contribute to open source and have the badge or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my first job was basically like no interviews, just based on my open source profile. The company, or the current company that I'm part of, also have some open source products, so I was just involved with that, and the job was just a simple like one-on-one conversations on
Yeah.
what are your projects or different open source contributions.
They're like,
And
hey, Tushar, it seems like you're doing this for free. How about we pay you to do this? Okay, you convinced me.
yeah. So yeah, that's what actually happened. So I think you get a lot of contributing to open source, you get a lot of visibility. There are a lot of people that reach out to you, and I think the best part of it is, as I said it before, you just grow compoundly. There's no stopping when you get started with these stuff. Initially there's a barrier that you have to push before you get started, but I think Djangonaut will do that work for you to help you push that initial barrier, get the inertia moving, and then it's all just a good walk down the path.
Yeah, and to add to that, even beyond getting your first job or getting your foot in the door, or if you're with certain roles, you might come to a point where there's usually this learning curve, right? Where at the start you learn loads and then it really levels off and you've become efficient and you kind of know the processes and you've been asked to make yet another API endpoint for something. And it's kind of fairly, you're not learning so much as you were in the early days.
Go with me here. What we need is we're going to need a grid of the things in the database, and I need you to be able to edit in the okay, like the 5 other ones I just built. Got it. Okay, exactly. That kind of thing. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly, and I also get it that and companies don't necessarily want you to experiment too much because experiments are risky and all this kind of stuff. So depending on when you work, maybe you've got lots of opportunities to learn lots of new stuff, but some people will be in a position where actually they go, I don't feel like I've learned anything this year or something like that. And I think open source or contributing to Django particularly, like it's so big and there's so much there that you can really learn about if you want to, and completely with no pressure, at your own pace and with really friendly people. And so there is if you engage in that as a practice, it can also give you the joy of programming again, that you can go, you know what, this is a really tough problem and I can really think about this, and it's not like a problem that's screaming at me that needs to be like fixed straight away or whatever, but and I think there's lots of those opportunities in there too.
Absolutely. That's always a struggle, is you get to work for some company, they're like, yeah, we're not changing that. That works. We're not messing with that. We're not ready for Python 2.7 yet. We're still on 2.6. So let's just calm down there. Like, okay, sure. I see some other people asking, is this Discord? This is a private Discord for the cohort. It's not something public that others can participate in.
That's true. There is a Django Discord that is public to everybody, and I would recommend joining there. So please do. And a lot of people are in both. And if you dropped into the contributing getting started channel or the contributor discussions channel and you were to talk about a ticket, it's very likely that I and other Django contributors are going to engage with you directly. So there's that. But the Djangonaut Space Discord is designed for the cohort to give people a little bit of a smaller community feel and allow them to feel comfortable sharing the pictures of their dogs and things like that when they're very new to this. So that's how it's working.
Excellent. All right, let's wrap this up really quick with just one sort of broader thing. Maybe there's many other communities out there listening going, I wish we had a knot, some kind of astronaut type thing for us. What advice would you give to other open source communities that maybe want to have this type of thing?
Give it a go. I really try it out. I think we're very happy for people to take, all of our documentations are on a GitHub. It's all open source. Please take it and make it your own. You can use different names. and keep in touch with us and tell us what works for you and what you've changed and what's better. And yeah, for us, we wanted to start off with something quite lightweight and basic. And when we started, for example, we had a name, but no one knew who we were because we just invented it. And for example, with Tushar, we reached out to some individuals. So in the past, when we'd seen some people be interested, those were the first people we contacted. So you can start really small, really basic. You don't have to have a launch where you're accepting applications, because when you have applications, you need to figure out what does an application even look like, and then how you're going to review
What are the
it. And all this kind of stuff.
criteria? Yeah, all that.
100%. So start small, and then you can build it out in a way that works for you, and see how it goes.
All right. Well, excellent. I think that's probably it for all the time we have today, but I want to congratulate you both on this really cool community you built and are building. Final call to action. People are excited about Djangonauts. What do you tell them?
Oh, just follow us on our social media, and please do apply when we have sessions. We really, really appreciate all the applications that we receive, and mentors are always wanted and needed. So get in touch. Please.
Yeah, of course. Go to the sessions section and click join us and fill out the form if you think you might in the future want to be part of it, right?
Yeah.
Indeed. All right. Sarah, Tushar, thank you for being on the show, and thanks for sharing your project. It's very great.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Mike.